Hello everyone, it's your homeboy, your guy, the man with the plan, the kid next door, and so much more, Zukashi King, aka Jaren Shade, the boy with a mind of his own. And today on episode 3 of the Boy with a Mind of His Own web series, I will be discussing pinnacle move points and scenarios in my 16th through 18th year of age. And I have to warn you, this video will contain traumatic experiences, a lot of them. It will probably feature some cruel experiences as well. So if you are underage, please do not watch this video if you cannot handle it. I suggest that you watch it with an adult near you if you want to learn more of this story. But please, viewer discretion is advised. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So last week we discussed my misadventures and adventures from 13 to 15 years of age, and we stopped at the point where I turned 16. So following up from last week, I had explained that at age 15 my life took a dramatic turn for the worse in the law, so to speak. I was in trouble with the law, I broke property, I was defying my probation and all such. And finally, when I turned 16, I had to go back to court. And, well, let's just say not a lot of good things were said. Hardly any good things were said about my behavior. So at that point, I had two options that the judge gave me. I could either be transferred to a children's hospital, a children's facility where children with misbehavior and behavioral problems could rehabilitate, so to speak, or I'd be sentenced to juvie. Needless to say, I took up the first offer, and my mother took me to the children's facility. However, the children's facility itself said that they could not take me because I was not 10-13'd. So at that point, I had no other option, and I went to juvie. I was in juvie for pretty much 10 months altogether. And when I say juvie was the worst time of my life, those were the worst 10 months of my entire life. It was scary, and it was very, very, very intimidating because I was pretty much the oddball out of every kid there, and all the kids knew that, so they picked on me. They knew I was sensitive. They knew I had problems, and they would pick on me. They would torture me mentally and emotionally. Tell me that my parents didn't love me, and that's why I got dropped off at the juvie. They would actually throw basketballs at my head whenever we went to the gym, and they would enjoy and get a kick out of it. That was my first time in life understanding that there were people in the world that do anything to torture someone else just to make them feel low. I honestly cannot say why they did it. I cannot understand why. I don't know why. A lot of people would say, oh, it's because they had traumatic lives themselves. I'm saying that still doesn't give them the right to do that. I honestly was tortured emotionally and mentally while in juvie. So I started out with one juvie detention center. Then I moved to another one in I believe Clayton County. And then I was moved to the same one that I went to in the first place. And then they finally transferred me to Augusta YDC. I have to admit, the one in Clayton County was not as bad as I thought it was. Looking back, I think I prefer the one in Clayton County more because it was small spaced. I just had problems getting along with people. It was small. The place was small. It was kind of cramped in some areas, but at the same time, a lot of us got along better than I did in a bigger scenario. However, I took that for granted, and that's when they moved me back to the bigger detention center. And then finally, they moved me to the biggest detention center I'd ever been to, which was in Augusta YDC. And I have to admit, it wasn't as bad as the first detention center, but it wasn't as good as the Clayton County Detention Center. The only thing that really really lifted my spirits there were certain guardswomen during the day, and they actually did. Some of the guardswomen, they actually did take care of me like I was their own child. They did encourage me to be better than what I was doing. They treated me nicely. They treated all us kids nicely, and I appreciate them. I believe there was one woman named Miss Cook. She was like a grandmother to a lot of us, and we adored her. And she, personally, I could say she adored us. And I appreciate that when I knew her, that she took the time to encourage us young men to actually do better in life. And she was there when we cried. She was there when we laughed. And she, like I said, was like a grandmother. And I appreciate her for that. I really do. She was a great woman. And I hope that wherever she is in life, that God's with her. I can say a lot of my juvie life pretty much took place in Augusta YDC. I was there for a majority of the fall all the way to the end of my term as a juvenile delinquent in juvie, basically. She basically, we did a lot of things. They had a lot of, in Augusta YDC, they had a lot of events for us young men and we were allowed to attend them. We had like talent shows, we had basketball tournaments, we even had special events for our holidays. For Christmas mainly, I remember that each of us kids were allowed to order some stuff from the canteen that our parents would pay for. And that actually kind of lifted a lot of us kids' spirits because we actually were happy that we got to actually get some things. So it actually kind of felt like a Christmas. It kind of did. The other thing was that on Christmas Day, we were allowed to stay up out of our rooms, out of our cells for longer than usual because a lot of the women, especially Miss Cook, who I mentioned, they were on the unit and they knew that we were missing our families and that we weren't used to this kind of Christmas. So that Christmas was actually the most peaceful day I had ever had because a lot of us just got along together, and a lot of us actually just took the time to realize that we all missed our families and that we weren't as cruel-hearted or hateful or even spiteful to each other as much. And we came together as a unit and we celebrated Christmas, and I appreciate that in that life. It was a very special and harmonious time for me in Augusta YDC during Christmas. Other things I remember about Augusta YDC, like I said, I was still bullied in that scenario, in that place. I was still bullied. Not as bad, but I was bullied. And there were times when I had to go to solitary confinement, which I hated because of these actions. And some of the stuff that got me in solitary confinement was just because I was just being stupid. Like one time I pulled the fire alarm during med call because I was just curious to see what happened. And my curiosity basically killed the cat and had me landed in solitary confinement. I remember after that never to touch anything that's just because it says pull. If it's red, don't pull it. Please don't pull if it's red. That's a little tidbit. That's a free tidbit for you guys. But after my 10 months of staying in the juvenile system, in the juvenile detention center, I actually was released and allowed to go to a children's facility that actually took me in. So this was when I was turned 17 that this happened. And at 17, I went to this place called Devereaux, which is in Kennesaw, Georgia. I believe there's one in Pennsylvania where I believe I heard Sylvester Stallone attended when he was there. But anyways, this Devereaux in Kennesaw, Georgia, I stayed in there for a year. There were from 17 till I was 18 years old. And there were a lot of things that happened. My first few months, well, pretty much most of my months that I was there, most of the year that I was there, I got in trouble. My behavior, my violence, it still was triggered, so to speak. And a lot of A lot of the kids there were just as much bullies to me as the kids in white and juvenile detention centers. The only thing is, these kids were monitored and restrained from doing such stuff, because if they did do it, they lose their privileges, or the I don't know what to say, the people on the grounds, on the units with us, they deal with it. So I believe that some of these were calmed down due to the fact that we had staff with us 24/7. And I appreciate that. I appreciate Devereaux for trying to help me in my time, even though I may not have acted right and I may not have appreciated it, but I do appreciate it now, because there was a lot of people in Devereaux that did try to help me, did care about me, and did not want to pick with me, but who did actually want to help me. And I see now that while I was there at Devereaux, not everything that happened was the other kids' fault. There was a lot of stuff I pulled because I was sensitive, because I was always angry, and because sometimes I thought I was better than the other kids because of my upbringing and stuff. But a lot of stuff I think I could have ignored. I know I could have ignored if I had wanted to. But still, part of me, like, at that age, was sensitive. So yeah. I think I could have made a lot more friends at Devereaux if I had tried. But some part of me just was like angry at the world. So I guess being angry at the world got me to a place where I was angry, so everybody, even those who didn't do me wrong, would try to help me. While at Devereaux, I had a relationship with someone. It was more of a childish relationship. It was nice, but it was a relationship with a girl that I liked, and I won't reveal her name on the channel though. But know that was my first relationship, and I actually, while having it, I kind of felt a new sense of appreciation, because growing up, I told you in my previous episode that growing up, I had relationships. I had liked girls before, but I never felt like I got the recognition from them, or I was just too timid to tell them how I felt. But with this girl, it felt different. We actually kind of were like the campus couple, kind of like that in college, or in high school. But we were kind of like that. We were kind of like the star couple on the campus. So it was nice, and it taught me something: how to appreciate women, and how to appreciate that their kindness and their love for men, and their love for me. And I admit that was one of the most precious times I had there. And I wished it could have gone on, but things happen, and sometimes things can't go on. As a young guy, when I was a young boy, I could not wait to grow up. I couldn't wait to grow up. I would tell my parents, I'm ready to grow up. At 16, I wanted to move out of the house and get an apartment by myself. But all that time, wishing I was grown up, that I could be independent and do whatever I wanted, didn't prepare me for what came next. At 18, I left Devereaux and was accepted into a group home known as Gifts. Needless to say, that group home made me realize just how much I wanted to be a kid again. I tried my best to behave. I did, a lot. But some things that happened that caused other people to take their aggression and their anger out on me. I won't say that there were some things I couldn't avoid, that I could not have avoided. But there were things that happened there that nobody should have to go through. I was the newest person at Gifts, and in the apartment I was in, it was a little torn up and ran down. I admit, there was an instance where I did mess something up, but I admitted it, and I apologized for it. But there were other instances where like a bath faucet broke and a shower head broke. I was blamed for that. I have no idea why. I have no inkling of understanding why they blamed me for it. And I don't understand. In other cases, when I was there at that group home, there was a library nearby. I had asked if I could go to the library, if I was in walking distance. Somebody said, yes, the library's in walking distance. So I made it a mission to walk there. I did not know how far it was. And I literally got lost. So when I finally reached the library, by the time I reached it, it was hot. It was, of course, summer, and it was hot. And I got sick from a heat stroke. I was throwing up. I was losing control of my bowel movements, and I was literally throwing up. And, however, I was blamed for that. And I told them, you said I could go. You said it was walking distance. So, some things at gifts happened that should not have happened. And a lot of those things that shouldn't have happened weren't per se my complete fault. There was miscommunication, and there were some other things. At gifts, there was one moment, well, actually two moments, that tremendously shaped my life. The first moment was the moment that I was able to start going to church again. And this was at a church that I previously went to before I moved to the new church I'm at. And I had been with them for a while. From that time, I had been with them for a while. But I will get to that later in later episodes. So anyways, in this church called Ceylon Baptist, I felt very whole. It was the start of a new period for me of understanding that there are people out there that want to help and will care about you, even if you aren't family. So yeah, it was a big break for me. The other instance in my life that at that time was having a pet. That's right, people. I had semi-adopted a dog. It was a puppy, and I was walking down the street one day, and I saw this little lost dog, and I could see that it was starved. It was, like, really starved. Its ribs were showing. It was kind of bruised. It wasn't being taken care of. And the dog's name at that time was Millen. And I thought it was such a cute name that I actually took the dog, and I went to the landlord of my place, and I was going to ask him, can we take the dog to the vet and see if they will take him? But before I could say anything, the landlord immediately said, yeah, keep the dog. I said, I didn't even ask. He's like, keep the dog. You can keep the dog. I said, I can keep it. He's like, yeah. I said, are you sure? He's like, saying, yeah. I said, okay. Who am I to turn down a puppy? I've always wanted a dog, so I didn't turn it down. When he said yes, I didn't turn it down. But I can remember the tone of my father's voice when I called him. I said, Dad, I have a puppy. He's like, Jared? I'm literally, he said that. Literally, that was his first tone. So yeah, that was the day I adopted Millen. And when I say taking care of a dog is not easy work, especially when you're a first-time pet owner, it's not, folks. It's not an easy job. It's not an easy job at all. I had to pick the fleas and ticks off that dog. I had to give it a bath the best way I could. I had to feed it, and with no money to buy dog food, I had to feed it table food. And for the most part, it was okay to take care of that dog. I didn't mind. I loved it. I loved him. But unfortunately, times got hard for me in the gifts. And a lot of things happened that caused me to get in trouble and caused me to get in fights and caused me to eventually get kicked out. Yeah, I was kicked out of gifts, basically, in the worst way ever. See, the landlord dragged me from my room and dragged me onto the concrete of the drive-in for the apartments, and onto the road. He called the ambulance. The ambulance came, and I could see in their eyes that they were trying, as they assessed the situation, I guess they felt sorry for me. But the one thing that broke my heart in that whole time was not just getting kicked out, but also having to say goodbye to that dog. Luckily, there was a guy in the apartment complex who had a dog and knew how to take care of dogs. So I gave him to him in hopes that this dog would find a better family and a better way of living. Needless to say, a few years after, I had come back to the same church, which was like right next door to the apartments, and I saw the dog. And it turns out he was big, he was fully grown. I don't think he recognized me, but I could tell he was in a safe place. But anyway, moving back to the situation at the time. Yeah, so I was taken to the hospital. I had to get stitches in my foot. That came later though, but my foot was so messed up that I would have to get stitches in it. But yeah, I did get stitches in my foot at that time actually. So yeah. And I was homeless. For the first time in my life, I understood what homelessness was like. So once I was released from the hospital, I went to the homeless shelter. And unfortunately, I did not have my meds, so I was freaking out. So I went back to the hospital. The next day I was taken out of the hospital and sent to the homeless on the street. I went to the homeless shelter, but to my surprise they said they could not take me because I was not of legal age yet to go. So, having nothing else to do and scared for my life, I called the last person I thought I would call, and I called the first person that I knew I should call, but also was afraid to call for fear of anger and disappointment. I called my dad, and I told him I'm homeless, I'm scared, and I don't know what to do. Apparently, the group home had not called my father or my mom and told them that they had kicked me out. So, my dad actually picked me up that day and took me home. Well, not home necessarily. I had to stay in a hotel until they would find me another place. I was in that hotel for quite a moment, for quite a few months. Actually, not a few months, but I think I was in the home till September. I had gotten kicked out in August, and I was in that hotel till September, till the beginning of September. And it took me, well, I'm not going to say this. I'm going to say this. That was one of the worst embarrassing times of my life, because I racked up the hotel bill. I racked it up, and my parents were in debt for a while because of it. And I had to be moved to a smaller motel because of all that too. And still, I, at that time, messed something up in that motel, so my parents had to pay for it as well. I gotta tell you, folks, being homeless and knowing that you're homeless, even if you have to depend on someone else, it's not easy. It's not fun. It's not fun. So in September, I had received the acceptance of another group home ran by a very special lady named Miss Portia Alexandra. And Miss Portia Alexander. And I'm confused. I forget her name. Miss Portia. Okay, it was Miss Marie Portia Alexandra. I don't know. That's the best I can do with that name. But she was a very special lady. But that is where we're going to end our video today, because that is a story in its whole other area. And I hope to tell her legacy of how she helped me in a more better, concise way, in a more full way. And that will be next week's episode, from talking about my significant points and significant events in my life from 18 to 22 on The Boy with the Mind of His Own. Thank you so much, everybody, for taking the time to watch this video and to hear my story as I went from 16 to age 18. And I know it was probably a rather short episode, but it still has moments that are needed to listen. It may be short, but it tells a good story. So, thank you for tuning in today. I will be doing more videos of The Boy with the Mind of His Own. Next week will be on episode 4, and I'll be talking about my life from 18 to 22 years of age. I may have to make that a 2-parter, but heck, I'll see what I can do. Be sure to check out my channel, Zukashi_King, and check out my other videos. I do reaction videos. I do gameplays. Well, actually, I don't do gameplays anymore, but I do reaction videos. I've done gameplays. I do other stuff like cosplay. I do random topics. I do informational videos, and I hope you guys will take a look at them. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and share this video if you feel like it. Also, ring the bell for notifications on more of my videos. Until next time, remember, be kind, be safe, be swell. Peace.
He's carved his own way in a world that changes. He's made his stance to say he's a boy with a mind that's ride the storm zone, but went through the valley, finding strength in the unknown. Every hill's a mount climb, brave heart shown. He's a boy with a mind of his own.